Shalom Israel, Shalom, Shalom. Brother Naquam, watching for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut, giving, of course, all honor and all glory to Yahweh. Bahashima Mashiach Kumalak Yabushai. Double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming of Hamashiach Kumalak Yabushai. A hearty, mighty Shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, presenting their body as a living sacrifice, and enduring all things for the elect's sake. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying. They're fasting. They're studying. They're being diligent and abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the Akwath out there, the sincere sisters out there, holding it down in the households, reverencing the husbands, being submissive and diligent, and moving in the spirit of our righteous foremother. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to everybody tuning in live. We got next Israel, HBK Ent, Sweet Styles, Kodash, Zion, Shalom King, Mighty WFI Seattle, Love Pious, Lion of Judah, Benjamin Youngwolf, Nigel Blends, T. Sellers, Vernon Brody, Devash Branch, and everybody else tuning in and that will tune in, Lord willing. The topic of this cold cut is end time visions, Daniel 2, and the fall of nations. So I want to take some time, seeing that we're in these last days, and take some of these lessons or cold cuts to kind of go back into some prophecies, go back over some fundamental breakdowns and visions that our forefathers saw that and pretty much go into how it relates to the time that we live in, right? Because everything in the Bible is relevant to this very day. You have people saying, well, the Bible is dead. Should we still read the Bible? Who wrote that book? Is it real? How do we know what's in there? Plays a role in our lives today. How does it impact me? Well, the scriptures speak about what's going on right now, man. Literally, America's documented in the Bible, right? The modern day Rome is in the Bible. NATO's in the Bible. The European Union is in the Bible, right? The Arab League, right? The Peninsula Shield Force, the CSTO, right? The Euphrates River drying up, the creation of intercontinental ballistic missiles, the chariot sightings. All of this is documented in the Bible, man. Right? So I want to kind of cover Daniel's second chapter because it covers major empires that spanned over the course of the earth. Right? So let's actually dive right into it. Let's go to the book of Second Esdras, right? Chapter 15 and verse 1. And this is one of the major prophecies that, especially you brothers that go out in the highways and byways, that you have to know, right? You got to be able to go into Daniel the second chapter, right? Because you're living in the time of Daniel the second chapter, chiefly the time of the 10 toes, right? So this is Second Esdras chapter 15 and 1. It reads, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, said the Lord." So we have to go into the prophecy. You got certain brothers saying, well, why do y'all go into prophecy? Right? Shouldn't y'all be talking about how long Esther's hair was? Shouldn't you be talking about what kind of sandals did Solomon invent? Should you talk about what kind of milk Job? We're not talking about the kind of milk and cheese that's written in the book of Job, man. But right, we have weighty matters to discuss. Are we going to take an hour and a half and really talk about how long Judith's dress was, man? No, we have to talk about weighty matters that pertain to salvation. That's in Hebrews. Let me get that in Hebrews chapter 6. It says the things that accompany salvation, thus we speak, paraphrasing, right? Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 9. But beloved, we are persuaded better things of you, and things that accompany salvation, though we thus speak. So it's our job to speak of things that accompany salvation. Prophecy accompanies salvation because your salvation is literally prophecy, right? It's written that you will be delivered. How you will be delivered and who's going to be destroyed upon your deliverance, right? And that builds up hope and that sets the tone for a major expectation. So you have to go into the prophecies because now you understand what Yahweh Shai has in store for his people. And it gives them an outlook and expectation and drives in hope that they can have something better to look forward to than what is happening here in this hell, man. The murder, right? The oppression, the robbery, the plundering, the pillaging, not getting a fair shake. So hearing the prophecy sometimes lights a fire in a lot of our people, and it does for me because I get to see through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai what he's going to do to our adversaries in time to come. And that's why the Most High is heavy into prophecy. And he told Ezra, speak thou in the ears of my people, meaning the Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the words of prophecy which I will put in thy mouth, said the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. So everything that's written from the time of Genesis all the way to Revelation is faithful. I mean, it will happen, right? There's no, well, maybe there's a 45% chance that Revelation chapter 9, this is not the so-called white man's weather, man, where there's a 60% chance of rain. Do you really think there's a 60% chance that Yahweh Shai is going to return? No, that's madness, man. These words are faithful and true, whether you believe it or not. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. Man, don't let people that don't believe in his truth shake your faith. A lot of brothers, you have a thin skin, man. Either you got thick skin or thin skin. Thick skin meaning stuff just rub off of you. You could take people's coming at you and coming against the word of the Lord and speaking down against the ministry, and your faith allows you to be steadfast and unmovable. Other brothers, they like, oh no, what if, oh no, they said the Bible's not real. Well, I don't know if I should believe in this. And then they said it's a white man's book. Well, is it really a white man's book? And then they told me I'm not an Israelite, I'm really a black man. Am I a black man? No, man. Don't let that trouble you. Why? Because the Most High said, for all the faithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Right? So let's dive right into it. All the unfaithful, keep in mind, let me get one more real quick, shall die in their unfaithfulness. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 and 1. Follow after charity and desire spiritual gifts, but rather that ye may prophesy. You see that? So the Lord says one of the top spiritual gifts, and there are many spiritual gifts, exhortation, helps, governments, right? There are many gifts that you can have to benefit the body and to magnify the name of Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai, right? The Lord said, but rather that ye may prophesy, right? So you want to be able to break the scriptures down and provide the interpretation to give the sense, right? That's what it's all about. It's about giving a sense. Now, when you're dealing with Daniel, the 2nd chapter, right? This is dealing with Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? So Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon, the Neo-Babylonian Empire. That reigned anywhere between 626 to 539 BC or so. And some brothers, you kind of know those dates already, but we have to go back over this because sometimes you need that refresher. Then you have brothers and sisters that are new into the truth, and they have to get this information too. Right? Now, you may say, well, why do I need to know the dates? And, who cares, right? Isn't it just Kwam Yasha'Allah? Well, the Most High said, what in Sirach chapter 5? What did the Lord say? Right? Ecclesiastes. See, it's not about what we want. It's about what the Most High commands out of us. Right? Ecclesiasticus, you can't be a lazy Israelite, man. The Lord said, be not ignorant of anything, and a great matter or a small. Meaning, don't be content with not knowing something, right? And don't just willfully not seek out understanding or knowledge. You're commanded not to be ignorant of anything. Meaning you should know just about, you're not going to know everything, but you should aspire and have the spirit to want to know, right? The information, the knowledge, the laws, the statutes, the commandments, how to repent, dates, names, Hebrew, maybe some Greek, geography, anthropology, right? You want the herbs, you want to be able to know land masses, cities, right? You want to be able to kind of be versatile. You don't want to be a one-dimensional Israelite, and all you know is don't eat pork and grow your beard out, right? You want to know how to deal with temptation. You want to know how to give counsel, right? And these are things that come in time. You pray to the Most High, he'll give you these things if you believe, right? And if you're steadfast, and the Most High will give these gifts liberally unto you, right? So I want to actually read this chapter, right? This is Daniel chapter 2 and 1. And in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled and his sleep brake from him, right? Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the Babylonians, like the Persians, like the Philistines, the Egyptians, they all nations, even America, they're no different. They all have a league of sorcerers, right? There are people that run this kingdom behind the scenes. America has magicians. Now you can say, well, hold on, yeah, I did see David Blaine, right? Okay, I saw that street performer in Vegas. He said, pick a card, any card, right? Then I saw that guy, he put a rabbit out of a hat. Well, that's not the magician that the Most High is speaking of. There are actual magi. The word magician goes back to the word magi, right? Let's see if I can get that. Slovakia. Etymology, right? Let's go into this word magician. One skilled in magic or sorcery, from Old French magician, from magic, right? Now here's what the word magic. Now check this out. Magic, art of influencing or predicting events. So that's a real magician. Not just pulling a card, but sleight of hand and producing marvels using hidden natural forces, also supernatural art. Right now, I'm gonna jump down to what this word actually means. Of magicals, magical from magos, one of the members of the learned and priestly class. You see that? So a magician is really somebody that's a priest. All right. It's really somebody that's from the learned priestly class. So these were guys that grew up in the Babylonian Empire, and they didn't grow up like a peasant. They ate well. They went to the top schools. You understand? They had tutors. They had governors. They had fathers and mothers, and they had universities. And they went to, these were esteemed men, learned men. This is what the Most High calls wise men. You see the word wise men in the Bible often. And the word wise men is speaking about magi. These are members of the learned priestly class. And every nation has a learned priestly class, even amongst Israel. When it came to the law, there was a learned priestly class. Who was that? The Levites. They knew the animal sacrifices, the laws, right? They knew the statutes, they knew the commandments, they knew the holy vessels and what to do, and they had everything pretty much figured out. So every nation has an elite group of men to govern the spiritual side of that kingdom. And these magicians in the Babylonian Empire were nothing different, right? Let me get a quick precept on that. Open up another, behold that. Right, let's open up another blue letter. Right, I actually want to prove that. Let's go to the book of 1 Samuel chapter 6. Right, this is 1 Samuel chapter 6 and 1. To show that every nation had magi and priests. And the ark of the Lord was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners, saying, what shall we do to the ark of the Lord? Tell us, wherewith we shall send it to his place. So when it came to spiritual matters, they sought the priests and the diviners. The Philistines had this. This is before the Babylonian Empire, the Neo-Babylonian Empire was created. Philistines didn't just have warriors like Goliath. They had priests and diviners. Let's go to the book of Esther, chapter 1 and 13, I believe. Right? It reads, then the king said to the wise men which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. So the wise men, they knew law and judgment, and they also knew the times, meaning they dealt with astrology, magic, sorcery. The Persians had wise men that knew the times. The Philistines had wise men that knew the times. Right? Let's go to Genesis chapter 40. This is Genesis chapter 40 and verse, let's see, I believe that is just another quick account. but he had the dream, right? Let's see. Bear with me. I believe that's 41. Khan Salakia. This is Genesis chapter 41 and verse 8. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. That's Pharaoh. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. You see that? So again, we're showing you plainly that every kingdom has a demonic priesthood that works for them. It's not just Israel. We're not the only nation of kings and priests. We are in righteousness, but there are kings and priests in wickedness, man. The Babylonians had priests in wickedness and kings. The Persians had kings and priests in wickedness. The Philistines had kings and priests, but in wickedness, man. Now you can say, well, America's not like that. This is in God we trust, or God bless America. Surely America will not be like the Philistines. Well, what did the Most High say? This is Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 9. Now this is dealing with Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, America. That's why America is called the daughter of Babylon, because they exhibit the exact same traits as ancient Babylon when it comes to magic, sorcery, witchcraft, and lewd behavior. That's why they're called Babylon the Great, the land of confusion, and an amalgamation of all of these kingdoms that ruled before them. America's Rome, they're Greece, they're the Persians, they're the Medes, they're the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Philistines, that they're all of that combined in one. Babal in the Hebrew. So that's where you get Babylon from. Babal meaning confusion. Right? And they carried the Babylonian traits in terms of sorcery, witchcraft, and magic. All right? Isaiah chapter 47 and 9. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. Right? That's going into America's judgment. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. You see that? So America has many sorceries. In the music industry, with the witchcraft, they have the Illuminati, right? And wicked priests and skull and bone society and rich 13 elite families and drinking of baby blood and human sacrifice and organ trafficking and all manner of evil. Now you can say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, if you say that's a conspiracy, you're calling it the Most High liar. You got people saying, well, that's just some wicked conspiracy guy, or you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, what did the Lord? The Lord says they have sorceries and enchantments, spells that they put on people. Stop thinking it's just the president walking around, man, just making things happen. There are men above the president, and there are men above those men. You know? And then you have, hey, they show you that one clip. They had that old man. It just happened, right? I can't remember his name, but he was talking. He kind of froze up. And everybody's trying to figure out, did this guy have a heart attack? You know, was he going through something? Did he have a flashback? And this guy pretty much just froze up on national TV. And some people made mockery of it. You know, he was on comedy shows. You know, they were making fun of this guy on, you know, late night shows. But really, somebody kind of went and kind of played that video in slow motion. And they showed this woman who kind of came out of nowhere and kind of tapped his elbow. And he went into like this trance. And there are plenty of videos of people under MK Ultra, spells and hypnosis. When people touch them, they have handlers and people that control them and make sure that they move a particular way and say certain things and dress a certain way and put a certain image out there. I mean, that's all out there now. It's not a big secret, right? Ancient Babylon been doing that. So, and they even have, America even has priests on their own hand. There's an actual high priest here in Babylon the Great. Like I said, well, you haven't seen him. You can't prove. I don't have to see him. These child sacrifices, right? These wicked illuministic agendas and pentagrams and satanic forces is being operated by priests, right? And these people do sacrifices like we do sacrifices, you know? But their sacrifices are rooted in evil. Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 10. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. You see that? So the Most High said they think they in secret. Nobody seeth me. So because they run what you call a shadow government, an illuministic society where they think nobody knows about it. But the Most High has brought it all to light. Why are we bringing this out? Because the Babylonians had the same thing. They had their politicians, their sheriffs, their governors, but then at the upper echelon, you had magicians, astrologers, sorcerers, the Chaldeans, and these guys, they could do things, man. Remember, in ancient Egypt, Pharaoh's magicians, they were able to turn a rod into a serpent. They actually did that. That wasn't sleight of hand, right? So they can actually do things, man. Let me get that real quick. Right, Exodus chapter 7. This is Exodus chapter 7 and verse, I'm straight to the point, and verse 10. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Right? It reads, then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. So what does it mean they also did in like manner? Well, they did the same thing. They had staffs and rods in their hand, and they threw it down and it became a serpent. Now, how were they able to do that? Is it because they fasted and prayed to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua? Is it because they sought the Lord through petitions, repentance, and supplications? Did the Lord visit them through dreams and revelations? No. There's a high level of demonic forces on the left-hand side, right? And men could actually they were doing this back then. You don't think they could do stuff like this now? No, they can't do nothing like that now. They wear suits and well, look, a spiritual wickedness in high places. They were doing this 4,000 years ago. Right? There's a lot that's going on behind the scenes, man. This technology is all sorcery, witchcraft, the television, the FaceTimes, all of this stuff is sorcery. It's an illusion, you know. But let's get back to Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Right? So this king couldn't sleep, and he called his own magicians, right? And they stood before the king. Daniel 2 and 3. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me, meaning I can't remember the dream, right? If ye will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. So he forgot the dream. So not only did he want the interpretation, he wanted them to tell them the dream that he had. And that's a tough task, man. See, it's easy, it could be easy for somebody to tell you a dream, say, look, well, this means that. Okay, well, that tree, it means this. And okay, this means that. Some brothers can interpret dreams. But I don't know any brother that can tell you the same dream that you had and break it down, right? So this is a big deal right here. Verse 6. But if ye show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. And nobody can do this except Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, right? Then they answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. So they trying to pretty much ask the same thing he already asked. Act like the king didn't just tell him what he told him. The king said, show me the dream. They act like they didn't hear that. Maybe they thought he made a mistake because they're like, well, nobody can do that. He didn't mean that. Just tell us the dream and we'll give you the interpretation. The king answered and said, I know of a certainty that ye would gain in time because they see the thing is gone from me. You see that? But if ye will not make known unto me the dream There is but one decree for you, for ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation thereof. So he didn't want them making up a dream and telling the king something that wasn't the dream, and it would have came back to him, and he would have found him a liar. So he said, tell me the dream I had and the interpretation. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. See that? There's that word, those words, wise men again. Now, Daniel was part of those wise men. Remember, Daniel was in slavery, but he was trained up as a magi. He was trained up as a magician in the same class as an astrologer or a soothsayer or a monthly prognosticator. He was part of that class, right? He was trained up to learn that kind of stuff. He was in that category. Daniel knew science. He knew all of that stuff. Now, does that mean he was exercising witchcraft or sorcery? No. It just means he was part of that class of men, And the king went forth, and the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain. And they saw Daniel and his fellows to be slain. So Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, what the world calls Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Those are the fellows that would also be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was going forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. So Daniel went before the king and said, look, give me a day. Look, give me by the end of the night. Give me till tomorrow morning, and I'll break this dream down to you. Right? Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Right? So they prayed to the Most High for the interpretation. And you can do that. Right? You might get a dream. You might not know what your dreams mean all the time. Some things are simple, right? And you may be dealing with a particular situation in your life where, the Most High gives you a dream and is right on line of what you're dealing with. Maybe the Most High is answering your prayer through a dream, or he's giving you counsel and correction through a dream. But sometimes you'll get a dream, and a dream is so far out there that you can't even break it down. You're wondering, why did I get this dream, and what does it mean? So you're supposed to go really first and foremost to Yahweh Bashmi Abushai, right? And you go to a prophet, and the prophet can say, hold on, well, that dream means this. The tree, it means this. Okay, this means that, because they're going to break it down off of the spirit. And there are men that could break down dreams. Joseph, he could break down dreams. Daniel could break down dreams. Even Jacob, when Joseph told him his dream of the stars and the sun and the moon, Jacob broke the dream down like that, man. He said, well, shall me and your mother bow down before you and your brothers? Right? Or shall me, your mother, and your brothers bow down before you? So it didn't take Jacob long to interpret what Joseph's dream was. So we come from a long line of men that could do that. And certain men, even to this day, they have that gift, and it's true. And you could tell them any dream, they say, well, no, that means this, that means that, and it's right on point. And you receive comfort from your dream, because the dream could trouble you, But let's read on. Daniel chapter 2 and 19. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of the Most High forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. So the Most High changed the times and the seasons, right? Not Esau, right? Not these other nations. They make fake artificial suns. They manipulate the rain. They make fake clouds and cause earthquakes. But the Most High, he runs the show. Right? Now let's get down to the dream. Right? Let's actually get down to the actual dream. So this is verse 31 in Daniel chapter 2. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. Now, this is pretty much what Daniel saw, right? More or less. He saw this statue, because this is what Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream. But he didn't know what this meant, right? He didn't even know, what the gold meant, or the silver, the brass, the iron, the clay, right? He didn't know what these things meant. So first, Daniel was telling him the dream he had, and then he's going to break down that dream. All right. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. So the image he saw was a fine gold right here. So you have four metals, right? You have gold, which is the head. You have the breast and the arms of silver. You have belly and thigh of brass. And you have legs of iron and feet that are part iron and part clay. Each metal represents something, right? So you have, again, gold, silver, brass, and iron. You even have clay. So that you have to consider those metals, and they each mean something, right? Now, also, the body of this image also means something, and we'll break that down. What the body actually means. Not only do the metals help you understand this dream, but also the way that the human body and the anatomy is set up, and it helps understand why those metals are what they are. Right? And we're going to read on and break it down. So he saw that. Verse 34. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces. So not only did he see a vision, Shalakia, like this, he also saw a stone. Let's see if I can get that. Stone cut without hands. If we get an image on that. See that? So he saw a stone cut without hands, and it's a good image right here. See that? And it break the image. So the stone didn't attack the head. The stone didn't go for the abdomen. The stone didn't go for the thighs. The stone went for the feet. And that means something as well. So we're going to break this vision down and what it actually means. All right. So when it says in verse 32, actually, let's read on a little bit. Verse 35. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. So he told him the dream, and we're going to get the interpretation. Right? Now, when it reads, this image's head was a fine gold. That's this gold right here. Right? Let's close that up. This gold. The image had a fine gold. The gold represents the Babylonian Empire. Right? This is the Neo-Babylonian Empire, who reigned from 639 to 626 to 539 BC. Right? Here's your Babylonian Empire on a map. Your Neo-Babylonian Empire. Right? Hold on. Let's get a more modern. You have it. Your Neo-Babylonian Empire. And they came into power after taking out the Assyrians. Right? Nabopolassar, which was the leading figure of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, actually linked up with Cyaxares of the Medes, and they overthrew the Assyrians around 609 BC. And the Neo-Babylonians, or Neo just means new, right? So the Babylonian Empire became to be the power horse in the Levant and Mesopotamia at that time. Started with Nebuchadnezzar and all the way down to Nebuchadnezzar II, right? Now, that dream that he saw, that head of gold, represents that Babylonian Empire. Now, why is it gold? Because gold is the most precious metal. The metals are a representation of the power of rulership for each empire. Or I'm going to say that again. The metals represent the power and glory of the rulership of each empire. So the Babylonians had a gold-like kingdom, right? What is this madness? Gold-like sovereignty, meaning no one can speak up against the Babylonian king. The Babylonian king was treated like a god. That's why the head is of gold, because it represents the highest standard of a government or rulership or an empire, right? So let's go to the book of Judith, right? I'll show you about this king and why he is likened to the head of gold, right? Let's go to the book of Judith, and we can go to verse chapter 3, right? Let's go to Judith chapter 3. We'll get a few precepts. We're not going to get 1,000 on one element, right? This is Judith chapter 3 and verse 8. It reads, "Yet he did cast down their frontiers and cut down their groves, for he had decreed to destroy all the gods of the land, that all nations should worship Nebuchadnezzar only, and that all tongues and tribes should call upon him as God." Now, there has been no empire after that had such reverence and regard for a ruler. Like I said, but what about the president? And they make mockery of this guy, man. No, Biden, compared to how they treated Nebuchadnezzar, it's you can't even compare it, right? I mean, they make movies about this guy. They joke him. They call him. They joke about him. They call him Creepy Joe, right? They call him Sleepy Joe, right? Nobody listens to this guy. You know, he's a laughing stock. He's a mockery, right? Even his own government will rebel against him. The Congress will say, "Look, we're not going to do that." So there's a lot that this empire in America that they don't have, that the Babylonians had. They actually looked at Nebuchadnezzar as what? As a god on the earth, man. That's how much reverence he had. Let's go to Judith chapter 6 and 2. That's why he's the head of gold, because of his gold-like rulership. He had the highest standard of a government. All right, this is Judith chapter 6 and verse 2. "And who art thou, Achior, and the hirelings of Ephraim, that thou hast prophesied amongst us as today, and hast said that we should not make war with the people of Israel, because their God will defend them." Right, here's what they said. "And who is God but Nebuchadnezzar?" See how they looked at him? They thought he was the Most High. They said, "Who is God but Nebuchadnezzar?" All right. So he's that gold-like government. Now, nobody could buck up against Nebuchadnezzar because he was God, a god of that time. Now, look at how these other kingdoms operate. They have, like America, right? They have checks and balances, right? He has a house, America has a House of Representatives. They have a Senate. They have Congress, right? You can veto. The president could veto something. The president could declare war, and they might say, "Hey, look, we don't want to go to war." So the president doesn't really have power. He's a puppet. And Nebuchadnezzar wasn't a puppet, man. Biden is a puppet. Obama's a puppet. He was a puppet. Trump was a puppet. Set in office, a puppet king. Nebuchadnezzar wasn't a puppet king. He was a head of gold. You see that? So that gold represents the highest standard of a government and a gold-like rulership of that empire. Now, the arms in the chest of silver represent the Medo-Persian Empire, which reigned anywhere between 552, some would say 550, would say 550 BC, all the way up to around 331 BC. Now, the arms in the chest of silver are the Medes and the Persians. Now, the silver is not as valuable as gold. All right. Silver is not as valuable as gold, but when it comes to the strength of a metal, silver is stronger than gold. It's a more durable metal than gold, right? So since silver is stronger than gold, it's only right that after the Babylonians ruled, the Medes and the Persians ruled, because the Persians took down the Babylonians at the Battle of Apis at around 539 BC, right? So let's pull up the Battle of Apis. A Battle of Apis was the last major military engagement between the Achaemenid Persian Empire and the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which took place in September of 539 BC during the Persian invasion of Mesopotamia. At the time, Babylonia was the last major power in Western Asia that was not yet under Persian rule. You see that? So you had the Battle of Apis, which was a transition of power, or led to the transition of power between the Babylonians to the Persians and Cyrus the Great. You see that? So that's the reason why the Persians and the Medes are the arms and chest of silver. That's one of the reasons, because silver is stronger than gold. So they defeated the gold. There's another reason why the Medes and the Persians are likened it to silver. Why? Because silver is less valuable than gold. Meaning what? The style of government that the Medes and the Persians had, they didn't have that godlike status of the Babylonians. Their government was a lot weaker. So the governments depreciate in value as time progresses. Right? So there was a top government, the Babylonians, where he was a god. Then you had the Persians, where their king wasn't treated like a god. You can actually tell Cyrus, Artaxerxes, Xerxes, and all of these men, you can tell them what to do. Right? They could check these kings. There's something called the law of the Medes and the Persians that altereth not. Let me get that. I believe that's in Daniel, the 6th chapter. Right? And I'm going to get straight to the point. This is Daniel chapter 6 and verse 12. So this is after they made the decree to jam up Daniel that no man can seek a petition to any god save the Persians. Right? Now, check this out. Daniel chapter 6 and 12. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Here's what the men that entrapped Daniel, or tried to trap up Daniel, brought before the king. Here's what they said. Hast thou not signed the decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or a man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? So they said, look, no man can ask a petition to anybody but you, knowing that Daniel always made petitions to the Most High. So this was trying to trap him up. The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. You see that? So even a king couldn't go back and change his law. Guess who could, though? Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar could say, hey, look, today we're going to worship this statue as a god, and tomorrow we're going to worship this animal as a god. And everybody had to obey and call him a god. Now, if this king decided to say, hey, look, I know I signed that law, but I ain't really feeling it right now. Let's change it. Well, these people that were under him, they would check him and say, hey, look, I'm not dealing with that, man. Right? You can't do that. Let's actually jump down. Verse 15. These men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and the Persians is that no decree nor a statute which the king establisheth may be changed. So you have people that came to the king and said, You can't deliver Daniel. We will not let you. Here's the law. Right? Now the king can say, Look, I'm the king. I can do what I want to do. But you had the way that he set up their government was a way where they said, Hey, look, anybody could check the king. And the Medes and the Persians government was so weak is that they even allowed other nations to follow whatever God they wanted to follow. And America picked up that spirit. America has the same spirit as the Persians and the Medes due to the fact that they have a tolerant government and everybody can serve whatever God they want to serve. In America, if you want to serve Satan, you could do that. If you want to worship a head of lettuce, you could do that. If you want to worship a chocolate bar, you could do that. If you want to be into Islam, you could do that. You could pretty much do whatever you want to do. The Medes and the Persians were nothing different, right? Let's see if we can get that. Persian, top religious. Let's see if we get that. Religious tolerance. Get something out of that. See that? As long as, tell me this don't sound like America. As long as conquered people paid their taxes and recognized Persian control, they would be allowed to practice their own religions. That's like America. You pay your taxes, right? You do your job, you go to work, but you can serve whatever religion you want to serve. It's not like the Babylonians where there was only one king and he was looked at as God. So now you can kind of see how the governments are getting weaker. How the Persian Mede government is a little bit weaker in terms of sovereignty than the Babylonians. The Babylonians had a god king. Medes and the Persians did not have a god king. They let everybody serve whatever god they wanted them to serve, and they also had people that could check the king. So I'm gonna read this again. It reads, as long as conquered people paid their taxes and recognized Persian control, they would be allowed to practice their own religions. The Persian emperors even rebuilt local temples that had been destroyed in wars to conquer a city. It was the first system of religious tolerance in the world. And America's tolerant, right? America is a very tolerant society. So you're wondering why in Daniel chapter 2 and 32, it reads his breast and his arms of silver. It's the Medes and the Persians, because silver is less valuable than gold, because the government of the Medes and the Persians was weaker. But on the other hand, silver is stronger than gold. That's why the Medes and the Persians defeated the head of gold and come after them. Another reason why the Medes and the Persians are the arms in the chest of silver is because when you deal with this statue that you're looking at, the way that the Most High created this vision is so perfect to explain the succession of kingdoms, because your body divides in the anatomy as you go down from head to toe, right? So you have one head, but as you go down the body, it gets more and more divided and spread apart, right? So you start with one head and you end up with 10 toes. So the head represents a singular unity and power of the king. And then that's one unit, right? Then you break down with the arms, 2 arms, right? And a chest of silver. So now your body becomes to be more divided and more spread apart. So there's less unity in that government as well. That's why you had the king and you had the people that could check the king. And you had all these different religions that could do their own thing. And as you go down the body, it gets more spread apart because your arms are connected to your chest. But then you have the next empire, which is the thighs and the belly of brass. So your thighs aren't connected, right? And your belly, those are 3 separate body parts. So your body gets more divided as you go down. Then you have the legs, which are completely set apart. Then you have the 10 toes. right? Your toes don't touch. They all on 2 separate feet, 10 digits. So it shows how these kingdoms get more divisive, right? And they become more weaker due to the fact that they're being more spread apart as time progresses as well. That's another thing about this statue that's not really mentioned, is how the Most High breaks the unit structure down of the body and compares to how kingdoms get weaker throughout time. So with that being said, the next empire is the Greek Empire. The Greek Empire is the thigh and the belly of brass, right? Let's go to the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter, right? Put it Daniel, the 7th chapter. The thigh, it's like the thigh and the belly of brass represent who? The Greeks. Now, the Greeks defeated the Medes and the Persians, chiefly the Persians. They defeated the Persians at the Battle of Arbela, and some, we say the Battle of Gaugamela. Now, you wouldn't be wrong if you said Arbela. Some scholars would say Arbela, but it's the Battle of Gaugamela, where Alexander the Freak, the Crete, what scholars call the Great, he defeated Darius III and the plains of Gaugamela, right? And that's how the Persians were actually defeated and the Greeks came into power. And really, this is a beautiful chapter, because if you can understand Daniel, the 2nd chapter, then you'll understand Daniel, the 7th chapter. Then you'll understand Daniel, the 8th chapter. And then you'll understand Daniel, the 11th chapter. You'll understand Revelation, the 12th chapter, the 13th chapter, the 17th chapter. So Daniel 2 is like a foundation prophecy to help you understand secular history and these other kingdoms that come in time. So it's very important, if you want to understand prophecy, if you want to get a better grasp on dark sayings and these visions, is you want to, hone in on Daniel, the 2nd chapter, because it's pretty much the foundational chapter of prophecies. All right, you're not going to, be able to break down 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter, the 12th chapter, Revelation 13, Revelation 12, Revelation 17, Revelation even 20. Certain chapters are all based off of certain chapters, right? So we just want to put that out there. Now, this is Daniel chapter 7 and verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So this is dealing with the Greeks. The Greek Empire is likened to a leopard, right? Alexander was known for fighting with a leopard skin hat and a leopard skin saddlecloth upon his horse. And Alexander was swift like a leopard, right? Remember, when Alexander came into power, he was only 20 years old. And he died of AIDS or syphilis, right, at 32. So he conquered the known world at 32. And like we always bring out this account, once Alexander was done conquering the known world, his historians actually documented him as crying. And not crying just a little bit, crying a lot. And he was weeping. And his generals went to comfort him. They said, well, Alexander, why are you crying? And Alexander proceeded to tell him, look, this is why I'm crying. Because there are no more people to kill. And there are no more lands to conquer. And they said, okay, we understand. So he had the Most High gave him a spirit to live by the sword, And he represents that leopard, or in Daniel 2, he represents the thighs and the belly of brass. Brass is less valuable than silver, but brass is a stronger metal than silver. That's why the Greeks defeated the Persians. But the Greek Empire was weaker than the Persian Empire. Right? Let me read this again. Daniel chapter 7 and 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. And the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So if you got 4 heads, it shows that your kingdom is divided. Right? The Babylonians were 1 head of gold. The Greeks are 4 heads. Who are the four heads, the four rulers of the Greek Empire that came after Alexander the Greek? Right? You had Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lysimachus, and Cassander. Those are the, and again, like you always see, he had other generals. He had Perdiccas. He had Salakia, Antigonus, right? He had Hystiapes. He had other men that came and ruled with him, but his top four generals, Cassander, Ptolemy, Lysimachus, and Seleucus. So his kingdom was divided to what scholars call a diadochi. All right. So that's why the Greeks' government is a brass-like government, because how their kingdom was so divided. First, let's get the Battle of Gaugamela. See if I can spell this right. Okay. Battle of Gaugamela, October 1st, 331 BC. The Battle of Gaugamela, also called the Battle of Arbela, took place in 331 BC between the forces of the army of Macedon under Alexander the Greek and the Persian army under Darius III. You see that? Who's the winner? Alexander. So he defeated the Persians at the Battle of Gaugamela, and when Alexander died of AIDS, he divided his kingdom. What scholars call the diadochi, meaning the successors. These are the people who came after him. And here's his kingdom divided. Cassander had a portion of Macedon. Lysimachus had Thrace. Antigonus had Asia Minor and the Levant. Antigonus right here, his kingdom, see if I can get this. His kingdom was actually taken over by Seleucus, who had Mesopotamia and parts of the so-called Middle East. And Ptolemy had parts of Egypt and modern-day Africa. So here's his kingdom divided. Now you may say, well, I thought it was four heads. Why do I see five men? Why do I see five generals and regions? Well, remember, as time progressed, some of these generals got faded out. Antigonus got faded out, right? He lost the wars against Seleucus. All these guys were fighting amongst each other. I mean, this was civil war. And your top two kings were Seleucus and Ptolemy. The rest of the kings, they kind of ruled, but they weren't as powerful as the king of the north and the king of the south, right? Which is Ptolemy and Seleucus. So his kingdom was divided, you know? That's why in a statue, they are the thighs and the belly, because your thighs are divided from each other and they're divided from your belly. So now this shows the division. The division of the body is a direct reflection of the division of the kingdoms that happen in process of time. So your belly is one unit, your thigh is another unit, and your other thigh is another unit. And they're more divided than your arms and your chest, because your arms and chest are connected. Yeah, they're divided, but they're still connected. Your thighs ain't connected to your belly. So now you're kind of seeing why the Most High had this statue be a perfect representation of every kingdom, how their government would be established, and who would take over the kingdom after them. So this statue pretty much covers everybody. It covers from 626 BC all the way up to 2023 AD. The Lord covered it. And we're reading about men that actually walked the earth. For people who say that the Bible isn't real or that's a white man's book, how could a so-called white man write about Alexander the Great and Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes and Ahasuerus and Ptolemy and Cassander, Seleucus and Lysimachus? What kind of, that's why when people say the white man wrote, that's well, what white man? Because this had to be a hell of a white man. Which white man wrote it? Okay, the white man wrote. Which one? What is his name? Where is he from? Who is his fathers? And how did he obtain such knowledge? You know how much credit you got to give the so-called white man to say he put the Bible together? And you come to find out that many people who say the white man wrote the Bible, they never read the Bible themselves, man. You're just looking at the white man. You don't say the Chinese man wrote you don't say the Arab man. It's just the white man has to write the Bible. Like he's on a level, man. He's the last person. I'd rather you say the Moabite man wrote the Bible, man. I mean, we don't want to hear none of that, but of all people, I mean, think about what's in the Bible: laws, statutes, commandments, brotherly love, counsel, the Most High, the idea of a power. How could the white man write the Bible? Study the so-called white man, and then read the scriptures, and you will see that they're complete opposites. The white man don't have the ability to write the scriptures. It's not in him to put something so righteous and perfect together. So again, next time somebody asks you the white man wrote the Bible, ask him which white man, and where is he from, when did he do it, and who is his fathers? All right, and next time we go to Cap, I'm gonna ask somebody that, man. You know, they might say King James, but that, it'll turn to a whole nother conversation, right? But nevertheless, man, stop giving so much credit to this damn devil. So let's get back to this before I go on a rant. So you have the thighs and the belly of brass, which are the Greeks, because they are divided due to the divided empire of Alexander the Freak, or the Creep, or the Greek. Okay. Now, another reason why the Greeks are known as the thigh and belly of brass outside of the civil wars that they were having is due to the fact that the Greeks had a lot of city-states at one time as well. Let's pull up the Greek city-states. All right. Pull up the Greek, so-called Greek city-states. So a city-state is an independent. Let's see if I can pull this up. So this is how America is also likened to the Greeks, because there are so-called 50 states, the United States, where the Greeks had states, city-states, and each city-state had their own laws. So if you go to Texas, some of the laws are the same, but certain things in Texas are completely different than New York. You can get away with things in California that you can't do in Florida. Certain things in Michigan you can't do in Maryland, man. That's how the Greeks were. You can go to Athens, it was different than Sparta. You can go to Corinth, it was different than Thessalonica, right? You can go to Macedonia, and it was different than Thrace. So all of these different Greek places had their own laws and their own structure, and they were so divided. They would fight amongst each other. Then at one time they would come together, right? And then they would separate apart. So that's why they're the thigh and the belly of brass, right? So here's your Greek city-states. Let's see. A city-state or polis. This is where you get the word metropolis from. Indianapolis, right? What's another one? I can't think of another polar city, but polis just means city. Indianapolis, that's the only one I could think of, right? Minneapolis, right? That just means that shows you that this part of the Greek lifestyle. A metropolis. Metropolis is a major city or a mother city. All right. So a city-state or polis was the community structure of ancient Greece. Each city-state was organized with an urban center and the surrounding countryside. Characteristics of the city in a polis were outer walls for protection, as well as public space that included temples and government buildings, right? So they pretty much had their own government, their own thing going on. So we're going through the different ways on how the Greeks were divided, all right? How they were divided amongst each other. So it was due to them being divided with the four generals that came after Alexander, the Greek city-states. Another reason that made the Greeks such a weak government is due to their philosophy of a democracy, right? And if you need any other hints to let you know that America is an extension of Greece, is due to they follow democracy. Democracy is not something that came to be after the Revolutionary War. It's not something that George Washington, John Adams, James Monroe, Benjamin Franklin, they all came together, Thomas Jefferson, and they have this great idea to be a democratic country. What? No, they stole that from the Greeks. And the Greeks were pedophiles and chomos, right? So the word democracy breaks down really the two words, right? Demos and kratos. Demo meaning people, and kratios meaning power. So democracy literally means power given to the people. Let's pull that up. Let's pull up the etymology again, right? And we'll deal with democracy. The Greeks were weak, man. A very weak government indeed. See that? Democracy, government by the people. Did the Medes and the Persians give power to the people to run a government? No. Why would you give people the power of the government? Only the so-called white man would think of something so foolish. When did King David, when did the Most High say, hey, look, I'm back out of this thing. All right, Israel, I want y'all to kind of just, y'all figure this thing out. Even all of the kings that were set up were by the Most High. He set up David, Saul, he even set up Saul. He set up Solomon. Even the Most High set up the kings. These nations gave power unto these people who have no wisdom to be able to try to determine who's the best fit to run their kingdom. So this is a very weak philosophy. This is probably one of the weakest philosophies to ever run a king. It's so effeminate, right? And it's so rooted in confusion. There's no wonder that the Greeks fell. You gave power to the people. And some of these people are serial killers, pedophiles, sodomites, chomos, right? Thieves, liars, you know? Damn pickpocketers, man, right? Manipulators, town drunkards, shoemakers, right? So it just breeds madness, right? The Most High said that he is not the author of confusion. Let's get that in 1 Corinthians, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 14 and 33. It reads, for the Most High is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints. But being a democracy is the author of confusion, right? Because again, you have 1,000 people trying to make one decision. That's why the way that our government is set up, when I say our, I'm speaking of Israel, our king is Yahweh Shai, and our government is called a theocracy. So a theocracy is when the Most High God runs the earth and runs our kingdom. But we read democracy, right? Democracy from demos, meaning common people, and kratos, meaning to rule. So you gave power to the common people to rule. Now, a theocracy is a little bit different. Let's pull up a theocracy. It means you have given, or the Most High has power to rule, right? Literally the rule of God. From theos, meaning God, and kratos, meaning rule, right? See that? So the Most High runs it. It reads form of government in which the Most High is recognized as supreme ruler, and his laws form the statute book. See that? Originally of the sacerdotal government of Israel before the rise of kings, right? And our kings still are part of this theocratic government, right? Because the kings understand that their power comes from Yahweh. Then David knew that the Most High ran the earth. Did not Solomon know that? Did not Hezekiah, Josiah, Uzziah, Asa? Did not these men knew that the Most High ran the earth? Right? So we have a theocratic government compared to a democratic government, which you give power to the people. It's the exact opposite, right? So let's go back to this. Let's go back to this democracy, right? Look at this. Check this out. It reads, democracy is a system of government and form of liberalism in which state power is vested in the people or the general population of a state based on principles of liberty and free will. You see that? So democracy is rooted in liberty and free will. What is free will? Do it, pretty much do whatever you want to do. Right? Meaning you have the willpower to be free. Meaning you're not bounded by morals, principles, laws, ethics, right? And you're free from ethics and morals to do what you will to do, despite what the standard is. And that's what America's about, man. They're about freaking off and doing whatever you want to do. That's that follow your heart, chase your dreams, be the best you, right? That's all of that nasty talk that they do, right? Kind of just do whatever you want to do. Look at this, right? This is madness. So let's go back to this. Let's go back to where we were. So again, that's why in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, you also have the belly, right, Salakia? You have the belly and the thigh of brass, because the belly and the thigh of brass represents the division of the Greeks. Although brass is stronger than silver, the government of the Greeks was weaker than the government of the Medes and the Persians. All right? That's why, again, in Daniel, the 7th chapter, there were 4 heads. Right? Let's go to Daniel chapter 8. Quick precept dealing with the Greeks. This is Daniel chapter 8 and verse 8. It reads, therefore the he-goat waxed very great. Now the he-goat represents the Greeks. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, meaning Alexander the Great, or the Greek, died of AIDS. Right? He was HIV positive and he had syphilis, but he also died of AIDS. All right. And he, Alexander the Greek, his lover was one of his generals. There's this famous quote that is well known about Alexander the Greek, or the freak, the Greek. The quote is this: it's that the only thing that could conquer Alexander was not these other nations. The only thing that could conquer him was his general's thighs. That's the same. The only thing that could conquer Alexander was his general's thighs, because they were lovers. Man, this man was a pure sodomite. So you know he had all types of diseases going on. And they were fighting naked from the waist down. So this was a freaky kingdom. You know? And they all fought over Alexander's body, man, when he died. That's what it means the great horn was broken. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. So out of Alexander came again your 4 notable ones. The notable ones are his generals: Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. Those are the 4 notable ones of heaven. And that's how the kingdom was weak. That's again why Nebuchadnezzar saw the thigh and the belly of brass. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2 and verse 33. His legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Now, what does it mean his legs are of iron and his feet part of iron and part of clay? Let's pull up the statue again. And we had another statue. So here's the legs of iron and the feet that are part iron and part clay. Now, the legs of iron represent the Romans. Why does it represent the Romans? Because the Romans conquered the Greeks. Just as much as iron is a stronger metal than brass. If you should go to war with a brass shield and have an iron rod or iron weapon or iron hammer, eventually I'm going to dent up that brass shield. I'm going to beat a hole in that brass shield in process of time. Brass and iron are completely on a different playing field in war. So iron is stronger than brass, as much as the Romans are stronger than the Greeks. Now, the Romans defeated the Greeks at the in the Macedonian Wars. Pull up the Macedonian Wars. So like in Macedon Wars, right? We'll call it the Macedonian Wars, right? It reads, the Macedonian Wars were a series of conflicts fought by the Roman Republic and its Greek allies in the Eastern Mediterranean against several different major Greek kingdoms, right? So it started in 214 BC and it ended around 146 BC at the Battle of Corinth. Okay, Battle of Corinth. Okay, let's see. They got something. Let's see. See, they got a Confederate army. Okay. The Battle of Corinth of 146 BC. And you may say, well, why you keep going into history? Well, you got to know the history. Right? You have to know a little bit of secular history in order to understand the Bible. I mean, you just have to. I mean, it's a prerequisite to understand particular prophecies. Everything's not just going to be like we always say, just grow your beard out and keep the Sabbath. Right? There are certain, dark parables in the Bible and dark sentences and visions that have to be interpreted, that talk about real life events that happen in the process of time. Right? The Battle of Corinth of 146 BC, also known as the Battle of Leucoptera or the Battle of Leucopetra, was a decisive engagement fought between the Roman Republic and the Greek city-state of Corinth and its allies in the Achaean League. So the Battle of Corinth really marked the transition of power between the Romans and the Greeks. See this? 146 BC, here's a painting called The Last Day on Corinth. Result, Roman victory. Another result, the destruction of Corinth. Complete Roman hegemony over Greece, meaning the Romans completely took over Greece. The Achaean League disbanded, and Greece annexed by the Roman Republic. So Greece was annexed, meaning taken in under the Roman Republic. All right. And that's how you have legs of iron after thighs and belly of brass, because the Roman Empire was iron and it was stronger than what? Than the brass. Let's get that in Daniel chapter 7. This is Daniel chapter 7, and I believe I want 7. All right, Daniel chapter 7 and 7. It reads, let's see. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. Why does it have great iron teeth? Because they break in pieces any other element, any other metal. The Romans did. When you study Roman history, they had the strongest military ever. It devoured and break in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So now the Roman Empire, yeah, they were of iron, and they were strong, and they break in pieces and took down other nations, right? If you look up the Roman Empire, see if we can get the Roman Empire on the map. Okay, This is Rome in 117 AD at its greatest extent. I believe this is during the time of Hadrian, right? If I'm not mistaken. So you can see Rome and all of its provinces. Now, Rome, you can see they took down Greece, Macedonia, and not only that, they spread down to parts of Africa, Asia, Europe. They went as north as Britannia, right? And took the Brits down. So this is Rome at its greatest extent. And they conquered pretty much the known world. Even you see Judea, right? Unfortunately, we were taken out by the Romans due to sin. Now, the Romans are that leg of iron because they defeated all of those empires before them. But what else? Remember, the medals don't represent just the military strength of these kingdoms. The medals also represent how these governments lose value and their power, how the governments and kingdoms politically get weaker as time progresses. We started all the way with the gold, right? What they call, we read in Judith, the 3rd chapter, that they called Nebuchadnezzar God, and that everybody would worship him. Then we read in Judith, the 6th chapter, where they said, well, who is God but Nebuchadnezzar? So he was that gold. But gold is a weak metal. That's why gold was defeated by the silver. Then we read about the Medes and the Persians, right? And they're stronger. They defeated the gold, but their government was weaker. They could check the king. You had the law, the Medes and the Persians that altereth not. They told, even when you read Bel and the Dragon, they threatened to destroy the king. You know? Then you got the thigh and the belly of brass, which are the Greeks, because brass is indeed stronger than silver. But the government of the Greeks was a lot weaker due to the city-states, the democracy, and Alexander's generals being divided. And then you have the legs of iron, because your legs are more divided than any other thing, except your toes. Your legs are more divided than your thighs, right? Now, why also are they iron? Because the Roman government was weaker than the brass, than the Greeks. Remember, the Romans had a Senate. And I mean, the Romans had so much going on. I mean, we could do a whole lesson on the Romans. Let's look up the Roman government structure. We'll see the Roman Empire, right? See Roman, we'll just do government. See how divided it was. See if they can give us a nice little visual. And they had, really, the Romans had a republic at one time. And a republic is where you actually choose who's going to represent you. So we can get this first. Salakia, a republic. See that? A republic, state in which supreme or executive power rests in the people via representatives chosen by the citizens entitled to vote. So that's what a republic is, right? A republic, it's a little bit different than a democracy. They're kind of the same, but still a little bit different. A republic is when you have a representative to make the decisions on behalf of the people, right? Whereas a democracy is just the people have complete power to decide who's going to rule. Republic kind of constricts that power and says, hey, you're going to get that power, but it's going to be vested in this guy who's going to represent you. That's why you have senators, congressmen, etc. Even in America, America is a democratic republic. That's their philosophy of how they run their government politically, because they get it from the Romans. They are Rome. All right, they are Rome. So the Romans had a republic. And if you look up the republic, government chart. First, they were a kingdom, and then they transitioned to a government. So let's see if we can get a good map of their government. Okay, that's not the best one. Just want to kind of show. See that? Hold on. See, Rome's government had a legislative branch, judicial branch, and an executive branch. So that sounds familiar, right? That's just like America. But I want to get, here's what I want. I want something like this. Okay, so let's see how divided the Roman government was. They didn't have just one king, Slaki, that they would worship. They didn't have just one king that they would sit down and bow down to and say, hey, look, there's no king but Caesar. No, man. Right? They had a senate of 300 men. We'll get that in the book of Maccabees, comprised of current and past magistrates who served for life, managed foreign policy, and controlled the money, proposed but could not pass law. So you had the senate, then you had the plebeians, and you had slaves. You had 2 Roman consuls, 8 praetors, 16 aediles, 20 quaestors, 10 tribunes. Then you had ordinary people. Then you had slaves. It's a lot more divided than the Babylonians ever were. A lot more divided than the Medes and the Persians and even the Greeks. See that? So this is division. You have 300 men sitting there trying to figure out what the hell is going on. How do you have a room of 300 men just trying to figure out what's going on? How do you run a government like that? Why do you think America's falling apart? Why do you think Rome fell apart? Why would you pattern your government after a kingdom that failed? Really, 300 men? Right? You barely got 2. You get 2 Jakes, they can't even decide what to eat, huh? What you want to eat? Well, it don't matter to me. No, I don't want that. Imagine having 300 people in a room trying to make a decision on behalf of the government. It's madness, man. Madness. Let's get the book of First Maccabees. So these kingdoms are weak, man. Everybody want to praise the so-called white man. Oh, he's so smart. He's so wise. Look how he set up this. It's so in order. This is a weak government. That's why you could throw an egg at your congressman. I saw somebody throw an egg at the French president, Prime Minister Macron, man. You know, you can do whatever you want to do to these world leaders nowadays, especially the so-called white man leaders. Right? You can do a stand-up comedy special about the president. People will laugh at this guy's face, man. Right? I mean, even in the American government, they got other nations in their government. They got Moabites. Now they got men that are women. They got transformers. You know? They got damn Elamites in the government. This kingdom is finished, man. This place is done. Let me get this in First Maccabees, chapter 8. And let's see. I want to get straight to the point. Okay, First Maccabees chapter 8 and verse 14. This is dealing with the Roman Republic. Right? During the time of the Maccabees, there was no Roman Empire. There was a Roman Republic, though. The Roman Empire didn't come into the scene around 27 BC with Octavian. Started with Julius Caesar, but it was really Octavian or Augustus. Prior to 27 BC, the government style was not an emperor. It was a senate and 2 consuls, and that was how a republic was elected. And before the Romans had a republic, remember, they had a kingdom. They had the actual king at one time. So the Romans, they kind of switched up in process of time. Right? Now, let me get this. First Maccabees chapter 8 and verse 14. Yet for all this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end they might be well ordered. So even the Bible speaks about the Roman Republic and that senate that they had. And that they committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country, and that were all obedient to that one, and there was neither envy nor emulation amongst them. So that's that leg of iron kind of government where you have so many different political factions. The Romans were killing people, man. Senators were killing senators. People were getting assassinated, poisoned. There was so much striving for power. Many people couldn't even rule during the time of the Romans because they were getting assassinated and poisoned. Even Julius Caesar was stabbed to death by his own people. And they got the famous quote, "Et tu, Brutus," meaning et is Latin for and. That's where we get the word etc. That means and others, right? Ceteris, others, et is and, tu is you, right? So he said, and you, Brutus, even you are going to betray me. So even the Romans were killing each other. That's again why the Most High said, look, they're going to be iron. Yeah, they're strong and mighty in war, but how they run their government is frail and weak. The Roman Empire is a study within itself, man. And we encourage brothers to take on that next step to study and look these things up. Right? Let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 2. Right? 2 Timothy chapter 2 and 15. It reads, "Study to show thyself approved unto the Most High, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." So you want to study this thing, right? You want to kind of get into this history and be a scholar. All right, let's go to Philemon. All right, let's go to Philemon. I want Philemon. I don't want Philippians. All right, let's get this precept. Salakia spelled it wrong. So they want PHM. This is Philemon chapter 1 and 21. "Having confidence in thy obedience, I wrote unto thee, knowing that thou wilt also do more than I say." So you have to do more than sometimes what's presented to you. Sometimes somebody gives you information and you have to take that information and do more with it than what they give you. Right? They may say, "Hey, look, I need you to do this," and you may have to go above and beyond and exceed the expectations, and you should want it for yourself. So when we go over lessons like the Romans and we go into the Greeks and we go into that history, you got to kind of, take it to the next level, because you might find some information that wasn't even brought out today. Say, "Hey, yeah, I was going into the Romans and I found out that, this happened to them around this time. And, Israel was dealing with this situation during that time in Pompeii." And you kind of got to get into this thing, right? You have to really desire knowledge. The Lord said, "Come into the house of learning." Let me get that in Ecclesiasticus chapter 51. So you don't want to be content with just the bare minimum, right? The Lord said that you want to increase more and more. And 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and 8, you want to increase in His truth, right? And brotherly love, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and abound, right? Ecclesiasticus chapter 51 and 28. "Get learning with a great sum of money, and get much gold by her." See that? So the Lord told you to get learning, right? Get this learning. Learn this truth. Learn the breakdowns. Learn the parables. Learn the counsel. Learn the exhortation of history. You got to get into this thing. And again, you want to be more than a one-dimensional Israelite. Right? You want to have the spirit of a scholar, right? And you want to be well equipped with different topics in this truth. Geography. You should be able to pinpoint Jerusalem on a map, right? If there's a map given to you, you should say, "Look, that's where Jerusalem is. That's the Mediterranean Sea," right? "Hey, this is where the northern kingdom was. That's Samaria." So you want to kind of know certain things, certain dates, when the Exodus happened, right? When did King David rule? You want to know the Hebrew word for certain things. What's the Hebrew word for husband or for wife? Right? What is that Greek word for world in John 3:16? Right? a geography, artifacts. You want to know certain, you want to get equipped in this thing, right? That comes with time, but that's what the Most High said, get learning. With a great sum of money and get much gold by her. All right. And actually, I'm going to jump up too. Sirach chapter 51 and verse 16. Put your neck under the yoke and let your soul receive instruction. She is hard at hand to find. So it's not going to be easy. You got to submit to this thing, right? When you're under the yoke, you are in bondage and you bear the burdens. You're pretty much a captive to learning, a prisoner to the truth, a prisoner to wisdom. And you submit yourself to learn and to seek out how to please the Most High, how to receive salvation, you should know. I mean, the Bible was hid for you for hundreds and thousands of years, man, or thousands of years rather. Right? So you should want to really get into this thing. It's your book. Right? So let me go back to this. 1 Corinthians, Daniel chapter 2 and 33. His legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. So why are his feet part of iron and part of clay? Where's the statue? Well, they're part iron and part clay because the iron is Rome coming back on the earth as NATO and the EU. That's what these 10 toes represent. Right? The 10 toes represent NATO and the EU. Right? Let's prove that. Let's go to the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter. All right, see how much time I got. All right, we all right. Go to Daniel chapter 7. And remember, your 10 toes are divided. So it's showing you how the worldly governments get weaker as time progresses. From one head all the way to 10 toes. All right, let's get Daniel chapter 7 and 19. Daniel chapter 7 and 19. I'm gonna read 19 again. Then would I know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So these 10 horns represent historically 10 major provinces of the Roman Empire. But now those same, geographically speaking, those same provinces, as time progressed, have become modern day European countries, and they have formed the League of Nations called the European Union. That's what those 10 horns represent. Again, if we pull up that Roman Empire on a map. Hold on, let me go back. Right, you see Dalmatia. I want to get a Germania Superior, Lugdunensis, Aquitania, right? And there's other maps that have names that aren't really in the Latin, right? You may see Gaul, Hispania, Italia, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Belgica, which is Belgium. So these are your 10 horns. Your 10 horns is your modern day European Union. So, European Union. All right. And you see they're literally the same countries that are in the Roman Empire. See that? The exact same countries. Nothing really changed. Look at the map that's in the green of these Roman countries. You have Hispania. You have Gaul, right? You have all these countries that's in the EU. Then look at the Roman Empire. Same thing. So let's pull this up. Okay, European Union, right, is a supranational political and economic union of 27 member states, right? And originally it started with 10, but these are your European Union states, all right? Now, all of these countries have different laws. Again, if you go to Spain, there are different laws than if you go to France. If you go to Germany, there are certain things that are permissible that are just not permissible in Bulgaria or Romania. Finland, certain governmental things aren't the same as Sweden or Lithuania. So again, that's another thing. Keep in mind that this is iron and clay. Clay is the weakest element. It's damn near not even a metal. Because modern day Rome, which the 10 toes are, they're more divided than they've ever been. I mean, they are so divided, it's absolute madness. Germany wants to do something, France says no. Right? Spain wants to do something, America's all on the other side of the world saying, let's not really do that. So they're divided, not only due to the legislative standpoint, but also geographically. NATO consists of European Union countries, as well as Canada and America. Let's pull up NATO countries. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization. All right, let's pull this up. See that? Here's your NATO countries. See that? Your European countries and America and Canada. So they're divided by an entire ocean. Go to Oregon, try to do something, and then go to England and try to do something. See if you do the same thing. No, so that shows you there's a clay-like government right there. Right? There's a clay-like government. That's why you have these 10 horns. And out of these 10 horns, meaning out of those European countries, historically, America came up. Because remember, America came out of England. That's America's roots. That's what this means. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other, meaning America, which came up before whom 3 fell, because America took down 3 of the horns. Remember, they took down Spain, or first they took down France in the French-Indian War when they were part of the colonies, and they bought them out during the Louisiana Purchase, and they even had the Quasi Wars, where America has taken over French territories to gain more land in America. They took down England in the Revolutionary War to so-called gain independence, and then defeated them in the War of 1812. That's the second horn. Then they defeated Spain in the 1800s in the Spanish-American War. So those are the 3 horns that fell before the horn that came up. Spain fell, England fell, France fell, all before America. That's how America was able to take down these different countries that were once in that landmass. Remember, when you look up a map of America, we're pulling up a lot of maps. Map of America, let's say Spain, England, France. And you'll see how they all had different portions at one time. See that? So Britain had the colonies, France had the Midwest, and Spain had, on the other side of the Mississippi in Florida. But America has taken all these horns down. They took down Britain, France, and Spain. That's what Daniel chapter 7 is speaking about. Let's read on. Even of the horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose lip was more stout than his fellows. So America came out of England, out of those 10 horns, and took those 3 horns down. And in process of time, we know America became a great power on the earth. Right? Let's go to Revelation chapter. Oh, this whole thing is good. This is Revelation chapter 17 and verse. Boy, this whole chapter is good. 17 and 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And this is going into America. America's that beast that was and is not and yet is. Or you could say Rome, because America is Rome. And that's what this verse is pretty much telling you, right? Because during the time of John, Rome was still alive. That's what it reads, and yet is. This beast was still here as Rome, right? And it says, and it was because in today's society, we're looking at the scripture saying, hey, look, Rome was here. But it reads, and is not because in John's time, America didn't come into power yet, right? So you may say, how could Rome be back then and not come yet, but still be here, right? Because America is Rome. And depending on where you are at in time, helps you understand this verse. Because if you're in 2023, Rome was, right? But if you're in 70 AD, Rome being America is not yet, because they didn't come into the scene yet, right? But also you say, hold on, it's still here because I live in Rome. If you're back then, right? So this is another dark saying, but it's speaking of America being that major power, that major beast that will be on the earth, right? So Daniel chapter 7 is speaking about America coming into power as Rome, and Revelation 17 confirms that America is Rome, revived back on the earth all over again. Now, again, America has a faulty government. America has a democratic republic. I mean, look at America's president. I mean, look at this guy. This guy falls asleep at every press conference, and nobody even knows is this the real Biden? Is this actually him? Is this a guy with a mask on? Is this, who is this guy? He's the creepiest so-called president that has ever been on the earth. He sniffs children. He falls bicycling. He don't remember anything. I mean, he's a complete embodiment. Look at him. We just want to put him in a full Nelson. See, this guy don't even look like this guy. Well, where's the other guy? This guy. This guy don't look like this guy. Some of these guys are different. Right? I can say, well, I don't see that. Okay. Don't look like the other guy. Anyways, right? So this is their leader, man. And he's supposed to be at one time the president of America was the biggest figure on the earth. During the days of, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, J.F. Kennedy, and Woodrow Wilson, and these are top so-called presidents. At one time, the American president was a figure of sovereignty, global peace, world order, right? Justice, equity, wisdom, and understanding. Now look at him. Look at this guy. Now look at this guy. Right? Falling down, bike riding. Right? He can't get up. Doesn't remember anything. I mean, he has no idea, and he's not even really a leader. He's reading off a teleprompter. This guy makes no true decisions. The big bankers and these rich illuministic families are the ones really running the government. So what is this guy really doing? He's just a show. He's just like the flavor of the month. That's why this statue is so important to understand the weakness of these governments as time progresses. 10 toes divided. And they're going to be so divided that they're going to go to war with each other. That's in Revelation the 17th chapter 2, right? This Revelation chapter 17 and verse 16. And the 10 horns, which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. You see that? So this shows you that these European countries, they're going to hate the whore. Who's the whore? America. Why is America the whore? Because they're committing a freakism, right? Freakism and spiritual fornication with every country that they come into contact with. There's a military base in every country. There's a church. There's an embassy. There are soldiers and, McDonald's and gay bars and, Burger Kings and, strip clubs and weed dispensaries. They leave their tokens in every place. So everybody's in bed with America. But the Most High is saying that these European countries, the 10 horns, they're going to hate America. As America continually provokes World War III and drags Germany, France, and England more into it, right? As they continually lead Europe into hell, these other European countries are going to depart from America politically, on the military level, and say, look, we don't want to really deal with you anymore. And they're going to burn her with fire. That's why, again, these are 10 toes. And they're part iron because they're part of Rome coming back. We brought that out. And they're part clay because they're not going to mix and mingle themselves amongst each other. Let's actually finish that in Daniel chapter 2. Right? This is Daniel chapter 2. Let's go back to it. And this is a beautiful chapter, man. A beautiful vision that was broken down by the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua to represent kingdoms, again, from as far back as 626 BC all the way up until 2023 so-called AD. So let's go back to this vision. Daniel chapter 2 and verse 34. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces. So this stone that was cut without hands represents Yahweh Shai. He's cut without hands. He's made from the Most High. He's not made of a man. Now he is on a carnal level. We know Joseph, Mary, but he's from the heavens, man. He is that stone. Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 118 and verse 22. The stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. So Yahweh Shai is a stone which the builders refused. Who are the builders? The wicked leaders of our people. They looked at Yahweh Shai and said, we don't want to use that stone to build our people up. We rather use Esau's philosophies of Christianity to be a way to build the people up. Well, that same stone that you neglected and decided not to use, the Most High used that stone. I said, I'm going to take that same stone and use it as a cornerstone to build up the kingdom of heaven. That's the Lord's doing, not man's doing. Go to Isaiah chapter 8. Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 13. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. So the Lord is that rock, right? He is that stone that is cut without hands, that is going to be used to hit the image at his feet. Why the feet? Because the feet represent the powers that run the earth now. NATO and the EU. Yahweh Shai is going to destroy in this time. He's not coming. He didn't destroy the Babylonians. They had to go. Where's the account with a stone smiting an image at his chest? No, he's going to smite the last kingdom, which is the so-called white man's kingdom, right? Smiting the image upon his feet is equivalent to Revelation chapter 19 and 19. Let's get that. And Revelation 17, right? First, let's get Revelation 17. All right, let's get the stone smiting them. Revelation chapter 17 and verse 12. And the 10 horns, right? Those are the 10 toes. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So they get their power from America, and they all dwell and work together. These have one mind, right? They have Article 5, same European Union, same currency, the euro. So they have one mind financially and militarily, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is the Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So the Lamb, which is that stone, he's going to smite the feet. He's going to smite those 10 toes and burn them with fire and brimstone. Huh? That's what this is talking about right here. Right? He's going to smite the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay and break them into pieces. Then was the iron, Daniel 2 and 35. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, and no place was found for them. When the Lord said there was no place found for them, that's also linking up with Revelation 21. Right? Let's get this Salaki. I want Revelation 21, where he said no place was found for them. Revelation chapter 21 and verse, let's see, Revelation 21 and 1. There's another one fled away. That's a good one right there in Revelation 21, but I believe it's Revelation 20. Yep, con. Revelation chapter 20 and 11. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was no place found for them. So this same thing, there was no place found for them, meaning the other nations. You're not going to have Yahweh sharing rulership with the other nations. Same thing in Daniel 2. There was no place found for them, because these other nations are the first heaven and the first earth, and they're going to pass away, and no place is going to be found for them. All right, read on in Daniel 2 and 35. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. So Yahweh Shah is a stone, but he's going to become a great mountain, meaning a great kingdom. Right? And you know what this links directly up with? Precepts speak expressly, right? Micah chapter 4. Right? Yahweh Shah being that great mountain. Micah chapter 4 and verse 1. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and a people shall flow into it. So Yahweh Shah is a stone, but he's going to be given dominion, power, and glory and honor, and every knee shall bow. So he's going to increase from a stone to a mountain once all things are put into his hand by the Heavenly Father. And everybody's going to flow into that mountain, into the kingdom. And many nations shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. So that's why we know he's going to be that great mountain and fill the whole earth. Even the Lord said that knowledge shall cover the earth as the waters cover the sea, paraphrasing. So the whole earth is going to be filled with the knowledge of the Lord, right? With the word of the Most High, with Yahweh Shai, right? So that's what that dream represents. This statue, and we had another one with the stone cut without hands hitting. This is Yahweh Shai returning from the third heaven to destroy the so-called white man and his rulership. And right now, you live in the time of the 10 toes. That's why the world is falling apart. That's why there are riots in France. That's why South America is chanting death to the so-called white farmer and death to the so-called white man. That's why Iran and these other nations are calling America the great Satan. That's why the Israelites are rising up. That's why there's so much confusion and turmoil in these times, because you're living in prophecy. You're in the time of the 10 toes, right? You're in the time of the 10 toes, and this is the time that Yahweh Shah is going to return. That's why it's written. And Esau, let's get that in 2nd Ezra chapter 6. Right? Let's actually read that. 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9. It reads, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. You see that? So the end of the world, the 10 toes, is going to be during the time of Esau. Right? Which lets you know he's the one running the earth, and he's the one that Yahweh Shah is going to cut down. Right? But with that, we're going to close up, giving, of course, our honor and glory to Yahweh. By Shema Mashiach, like Yahweh Shai. Most High willing you were edified. These are end time visions. Daniel chapter 2 and the fall of the nations. Again, Kwam Yashala. Again, we may go into more visions, more prophecies. Quick announcement. With Helena Harbor, right? You may have seen the flyers posted on the social media, YouTube. Helena Harbor is so-called Labor Day weekend. I believe that's the 2nd through the 5th. If you're in the area, come out, right? Labor, fellowship, do the work. It should be a mighty so-called weekend out there. Next month, it's the memorial blowing of the trumpets. And you have the Day of Atonement so-called next month, and the Feast of Tabernacles. So keep that on your spiritual radar. Start prepping for these feast days, plan in advance, and stay in the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Awashai. Right? But with that, Kwam Yasham. Shalom.